How's it going? We've been dealing with COVID. It is it's a real virus. I mean, people are getting sick, and we battled with it for. I mean, one week was pretty intense, and the next week we were just really tired. It stole our mojo, and then mother-in-law comes down with it as well, and she didn't really take care of herself as well as what she could have and should have, and so it hammered her. And my wife went over and had to take her to the had to have her transported to the hospital. My wife couldn't get her loaded up, and she was out of her head. She got admitted to the hospital, and she's been there for about 3 days now, and she's got really bad pneumonia, and she's struggling. And she's doing better than she was, but I mean, we don't even have a timetable on when she's gonna get to come home. And I've reflected on the illness itself, and then mother-in-law being in the hospital, and how that has went down, and just the way that the doctors and the nurses think about the process. I realized it's not really so much them thinking about it in a sense of they're on their own and thinking about it. They're getting directives. My wife's asked about different treatment options, and some of the ones that there's a lot of evidence that work, the hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin. Uh, they won't even try those treatments because the top has directed them not to use those treatments. So they've got some remdesivir transfusions going on, but remdesivir, of course, that's a lot more expensive than hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin. And it's the medical establishment is a for-profit business, and they've really got their hooks into society because so many people are so unhealthy. I mean, you're gonna make a lot more profit off of a chronically unhealthy group of people than what you're going to make off of people who are just rocking and rolling and healthy, and not needing um, the services that are there to treat chronic illness. They're not trying to cure anybody of uh, whatever chronic illness they may be facing, whether that's something to do with obesity, diabetes, cancer, arthritis, other types of illnesses that are just debilitating to people. And for myself and my wife and our crew that we got here at the house, we take multivitamins, which everybody should be taking a multivitamin, and we make sure that we have zinc in our multivitamins. And now, what's worked for me may not work for everybody else, but when I go out in the world and I observe other people, I recognize that I'm not normal. Most people my age, it looks like they've kind of given up on um, really just living a thriving, vibrant uh, life. It's like they just been kind of whooped into submission and domesticated uh, to a point that they're not going to make triple digits, most likely. I mean, most of them are really looking. It's sad to say it's kind of demoralizing when you go to places and so many people are so unhealthy, and we're supposed to work together to help our world be a better place, and folks just ain't gonna have what it takes in the tank um, to do it, unless something major happens in their mind, and they do a Jedi mind trick on themselves to go a different direction, and they're going to have major attitude changes about the way that we look at our world if people are going to avoid what could be coming our way. The relationship between big business and government and banking is so unhealthy that it is what we've been warned about by past presidents and influential people about the merger of banking and government and industry, because you've got the top that is sending the directives down to the lower tiers, and people are really, they don't even realize that they've been led into a box for their thinking, and they're really just incapable of thinking outside of that box. People have been conditioned to go through step-by-step process, and I understand it's important to have step-by-step processes. Don't twist me up on what I'm getting at here. I'm just saying that people have been conditioned to follow the directives from the top and to not think outside of that box, and in being that way, it's really easy for the top to manipulate the bottom. And that is where we're at on every single level, whether that's your local bank president and the decision making on interest rates and things like that. They don't really have a whole lot of flexibility. The Fed says something's going to be a certain way. Well, that directive is going to cycle all the way through the system. It's going to impact everyone at every level. Same way with education. Federal Department of Education gives a directive, goes to the State Department of Education. Sure, you've got your school board and you can rail against certain things, but the state standards for the test that's going to be taught, the way that they're measuring the success of your school, that information comes down, and then the teachers are just left with, hey, how are you going to set your pace so that you can teach all of these things to these kids that they're going to be measured on? So the actual teacher, you're just presenting the information to the kids, and trying to get certain parts of it to stick. You don't have time to really go into depth. History is it's a big subject. There's a lot of history. You ever try to go and make a timeline of important events in human history, you'll realize, man, a lot of stuff has happened, and especially a lot of stuff has happened since, say, like 1800s on. Man, just so many different things. An explosion of history, really, from that point. And then you've got the medical professionals. Your methods of treatment are generally, unless you're a doctor that's willing to step outside the box because you don't care about the box so much, you're there to solve the problems, and you have the ability to do that. Most of those doctors, they're just going to do what the top has directed them to do. The top of the healthcare system and the recommendations that are coming down from World Health Organization, Centers for Disease Control, the State Department of Health, just different things like that. And you're limited to what your peers are telling you, and your top directed peers are telling you. Otherwise, we would see a lot more people being treated with hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin in these hospitals where, once you get in there, you're at their mercy. And, in all this, my mother-in-law been in the hospital. Not one time have they got her up and got her outside and got some sunshine on her. And that's what I feel like is a way to be able to beat this illness. And not just sunshine, but you gotta preload your system with the things that your immune system needs to be able to fight effectively. And so like I mentioned earlier, multivitamin with some zinc and other things. And then, you keep yourself in good condition. You eat lots of raw vegetables, and instead of going and getting a candy bar, you want to stock up in your system, invest into the bank of you with different fruits. Apple a day. I mean, an apple a day keeps the doctor away, so they say. Can't go wrong eating an apple a day. You may still have to go to the doctor, um, but you can't go wrong putting that in your body. And then, um, different types of citrus fruits. When we started coming down with this illness, and we thought, man, it could be COVID because of the the symptoms are consistent: respiratory, loss of smell, loss of taste. I personally feel like I've had COVID twice. I feel like I had the first strain that came through February of 20, because loss of taste, loss of smell, had no appetite, heavy on my chest, felt it in my back. Mojo was gone till April. From February to April, I had really no energy. Um, Coughed up blood for 3 mornings in a row. It was really, really rough. And that was February of 20. Then I feel like I got probably this Delta variant is what came down and hit us pretty hard here a couple weeks ago. But you know what? Dealing with that when you have properly equipped immune system is much better than running the risk of Guillain-Barre syndrome, or some of these other things that people are going through. And if you don't realize people are having adverse reactions, then you've got to figure out how to go and find information that's outside of the mainstream. Because the mainstream, who pays the media? Is paying the network media to inform you? And that includes New York Times, LA Times, I think it's like the Dallas Star, or whatever. All these major publications and writing and in television and things like that, they are all controlled by their advertisers. The advertisers are the same corporations that's selling people this garbage food that's making them unhealthy, so that then they have to go through the medical establishment for the medicine to stay alive. And guess who controls the majority shares for those corporations that's making the medicine that people have got to stay alive? It's the same people that sold the unhealthy food that led folks down that route in the first place. And so, anyway, VAERS, the vaccine reporting site, has showed more adverse reactions to vaccines in the last 6-8 months than in the previous 30 years. The graph is off the charts. Okay, and you've got doctors that are out there trying to tell people what's going on with all this. You've got Dr. McCullough, Tenpenny, you've got Dr. Stella Emanuel, Simone Gold. There's been doctors sounding the alarm the whole time, but they've been censored and they've been held down because the tech corporations, the government, the medical industry, and all of these people are in cahoots with one another. And people want to act like that's just a conspiracy theory. Well, you ask that, you say that, but then what is the Bilderberg Group? Bilderberg with an I. And when you do a little bit of research on the Bilderberg Group, you're gonna see that it's a real group, and you got to ask yourself, what is the purpose of that group? And you got to ask yourself, can a group like that coexist? Woo, bless me. Can a group like that coexist with a sovereign United States? The answer is no. You can't have a group of world dignitaries and leaders of industry established that want to have a top-down directed control over the world that we live in, and then have a nation of free people, which we're not even really free right now. We have to earn that back. We have had our freedom slowly eroded over the decades, and that's a whole other topic, and I'm coming up on my 15-minute window here for the video. But anyway, crazy world that we live in. God's got the answers. We just got to seek him to find them. God bless.